All right, so let's dive into this, huh? App development costs, specifically in Australia.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Our main source for this deep dive is this article from Now Technology Systems. It's called App Development Costs in Australia, What You Need to Know.
Catchy.
Right, to the point. And, we always talk about how much we love Australia's tech scene.
Oh, yeah. So vibrant.
But it's also a unique market, right? With its own regulations and just like quirks,
For sure.
So whether you're like actually dreaming of building the next big Aussie app or just kind of curious about what goes into those price tags we see,
Yeah.
this is the deep dive for you.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much goes on behind the scenes with app development.
Right. Like you just see the final product all polished in the App Store.
Exactly. But there's this whole ecosystem, all these moving parts.
Yeah, the article really emphasizes that. It's not just about the coding. It's like, building a house. You need the architects, the designers.
Oh, absolutely. You can't just have the construction workers.
Right. You need the electricians, the plumbers, all of it.
It's so easy to just focus on the development itself, but the planning
Yeah.
and the design phase.
Ooh, so crucial.
Yeah, they can make or break your budget. And if you skimp on those, you end up with like a clunky app. No one wants to use that.
And it's not just the upfront stuff, right? There's all the maintenance, bug fixes, updates, security.
Ugh, don't even get me started. That's a whole other budget line item.
Which I feel like people forget about.
All the time.
Like buying a car, right? You've got the sticker price, but then there's gas, insurance, repairs.
Yeah.
So let's actually break down some of these key factors that drive app development costs.
Okay, love that.
And I think the most obvious one is just like the purpose of the app, right?
Yeah.
And the functionality.
Of course, yeah.
Like a simple weather app versus, say, a social media platform with real-time video chat.
Totally different beasts. Absolutely. And the biggest thing is complexity. The more features you want, the more intricate the design, the more data you're handling. That all translates to developer hours, and you know what that means.
More money.
Exactly. So if you're after a simple app, something with basic functionality, you might be able to manage on a tighter budget.
But if you're really ambitious and you want all the bells and whistles,
expect that price tag to go way up.
Makes sense. You're paying for the brain power, basically.
Yeah, the expertise to make those complex features happen.
And speaking of expertise, the article also mentioned design as a major cost driver.
Oh, huge.
And it makes sense. I mean, we all know a good-looking app when we see one.
Totally.
It's intuitive, easy to navigate, just generally enjoyable to use.
Right.
But that user experience, that polish, it doesn't just magically appear. Right?
Nope. Definitely not magic. You're paying for skilled UX UI designers.
Oh, yeah?
Who understand user psychology, visual hierarchy, all those subtle things that make an app feel good to use. And honestly, a poorly designed app, even if it functions perfectly, it can just turn people off completely.
Right. It can kill your project before it even has a chance.
Totally. Investing in good design from the start, that's key.
That's the difference between, a functional but bland apartment and a beautifully designed home. They both provide shelter, but one is just so much nicer to live in.
Exactly.
And then there's the platform choice.
Right.
Developing for both iOS and Android at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be way more expensive than just focusing on one.
It is. Basically, you're building two separate apps with their own code base and their own, design quirks.
So in Australia, I know Android has a slight edge, market share-wise.
Yeah, it does.
But there are also a lot of Apple users.
Oh, tons.
So it's a tough call.
It is. It really depends on your target audience.
But yeah, developing for both at once
adds a big chunk of change to your budget.
So you're saying maybe prioritize one platform for the initial launch.
Could be smart. Test the waters. See how it goes.
And then maybe expand later on.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. Speaking of launching, let's actually walk through those key stages of app development.
Yeah, let's do.
And see how those costs actually stack up.
Okay.
So we'll start with the foundation, the idea and planning stage.
Fundamental.
Right. This is where you're really mapping out your app's purpose, identifying your target audience, and figuring out those essential features. Now, you could totally go it alone here, right?
You could.
But how much value does a consultant bring, even if it means paying more upfront?
A good consultant can be so valuable, especially if you're near to this whole app development world.
Right.
They bring market knowledge, experience with different app models.
Oh, interesting.
And they can help you avoid common pitfalls. They can even connect you with the right development team.
So it's like having a guide, basically.
Exactly, to help you navigate the app development jungle.
I like that. Okay, so you've got your roadmap sorted. Now comes the fun part.
Yeah, the fun part.
Design and user experience, or UX UI as they call it.
Fancy.
This is where the app's visual identity comes to life.
Yes.
And you're really focusing on that, intuitive, enjoyable user experience.
It's all about the experience.
And finding a talented UX UI designer.
That is key. Absolutely essential.
Because a skilled designer, they can take your vision and translate it into that beautiful functional interface that people will love.
And they think about everything, like user flow, visual hierarchy, accessibility.
Oh, wow.
Tiny details that make a huge difference.
So in Australia, the design talent pool is...
It's strong, really strong, but
you got to pay for that quality.
you do. You really do. So we've talked a lot about how, frankly, how expensive app development can be.
Yeah, not exactly pocket change.
Right. But there are ways to make it a little easier on the budget.
Well, I'm all ears because my wallet's already crying.
Okay, well, the article mentions this thing called a minimum viable product.
MVP.
Yeah, exactly. MVP. It's like dipping your toes in the water.
Before jumping in head first.
Right. Instead of building this huge, fully featured app right away.
Which would be expensive.
Super expensive. You start with a smaller version.
Okay, so it's about testing the waters.
Exactly. Validate your idea. See if people actually like it.
Before you sink a ton of money into it.
Right. And you can actually gather feedback from users and then...
tweak it.
Yes, tweak it, add features.
Based on what people actually want.
Exactly.
Are there any Australian apps that started as MVPs and then totally blew up?
Oh, tons. Canva, for example.
Really?
Yeah, the graphic design platform.
And what everyone's using these days.
Right. They started with a really basic MVP just for creating school yearbooks.
Oh, wow. Humble beginnings.
Right. But they saw the potential and then expanded into this design powerhouse.
So it really can work.
It definitely can. Another example, Airtasker.
Oh, yeah. I use that one all the time.
Right. They started as this simple platform for outsourcing small tasks.
Like what? Pick him a dry cleaning.
Exactly. Or assembling furniture, stuff like that.
So they listened to user feedback. And
iterated, and now look at them.
A major player in the gig economy.
Huge.
Wow. That's really inspiring.
It is, right. It shows that starting lean
and iterating.
Yeah, can really pay off. Now, beyond the whole MVP approach, the article talks about leveraging existing platforms and frameworks.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about that. So it's about finding those pre-built tools, right?
Exactly. Think of it like building a house, but instead of crafting every brick by hand,
you use pre-made walls.
Yeah. Or pre-assembled roof trusses, things like that.
Okay, so in the app world, what are some examples?
Well, there are payment gateways like Stripe, cloud hosting platforms like AWS.
I've heard of those.
Right. And then there are all these open source code libraries. It would be crazy not to use them.
So you're saving a ton of time and money.
Exactly. You're basically tapping into all this existing expertise and infrastructure.
Instead of reinventing the wheel.
Right.
Can you give me an example of how this actually works in practice?
Sure. Let's say you're building a food delivery app.
Okay, I'm hungry already.
Now, building your own mapping system from scratch.
Oof, sounds complicated.
Incredibly. And expensive.
Yeah.
But you could just integrate with Google Maps or Apple Maps.
Oh, right. So you're just using their mapping platform.
Exactly. Which they've already, perfected.
Makes sense. And it's way cheaper than building it yourself.
Way cheaper.
So smart. Okay, and then communication, right?
Oh, yeah. Huge one.
We talked about this earlier, but...
It's more than just answering emails on time.
I have a feeling. So why is good communication so crucial for, keeping costs under control?
Imagine building a house, but the architect and the builder constantly misinterpret each other's plans.
Oh, that sounds like a disaster.
Total disaster. You end up with crooked walls, misplaced windows, and a budget that's exploded.
And the same thing can happen with app development.
Absolutely. When communication is poor, it's chaos.
So it's about making sure everyone's on the same page.
Yes. From the very beginning.
From the vision.
To those nitty-gritty details of each feature.
Wow. Okay.
Clear documentation is so important. Regular check-ins, open dialogue, All of it.
So if your development team doesn't really understand what you want,
They might build the wrong thing.
leading to, expensive rework.
And delays.
Ugh, okay. So proactive communication is key.
Definitely. It can save you a lot of headaches and prevent those, budget-busting surprises.
I like that. So just to recap those cost-saving strategies.
Yeah.
We've got starting with an MVP,
Uh-huh.
leveraging those existing platforms and frameworks,
Smart.
and prioritizing clear communication.
Throughout the whole process.
Got it. Okay. Those are some great tips. But at the end of the day,
Right.
you're not building an app just for fun.
Right. Well, some people might. But yeah, you have a goal in mind.
Right. There's got to be a return on that investment.
Right.
So let's talk about those potential returns. Why is developing an app good for your business?
Well, first of all, think about how much time people spend on their phones.
Oh, way too much, probably.
Right. But that means your app, it's right there in their pocket.
Direct access to your target audience.
Exactly. Like having a 247 storefront, that goes everywhere they go.
That constant visibility is powerful.
So powerful. And it's more than just visibility. An app lets you build a relationship with your customers.
Oh, interesting.
You can personalize their experience, offer exclusive content.
And what about those push notifications?
Oh, yeah. Those are great for staying top of mind.
So you're not just shouting your message into the void.
Well,
It's more personal, interactive.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the efficiency aspect.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Think of all those tasks you could automate with an app. Booking appointments, processing payments, managing inventory.
All that stuff takes so much time.
Right. But an app can streamline it all. Saves you time, saves you money. And your team can focus on, more important things.
It's like having a, what's it called?
A digital assistant.
Yes. Taking care of all those annoying little tasks.
Exactly. And don't forget about branding. A well-designed app,
Mm-hmm.
it elevates your brand image. Big time. It shows you're innovative, that you care about providing a good experience.
And that you're keeping up with the times.
Yes.
It's like having a digital flagship store,
Oh, I like that.
showcasing the best of your brand.
Exactly. And last but not least,
There's more.
an app can open up new revenue streams.
Oh, tell me about it.
In-app purchases, subscriptions, even selling ad space. An app can become a really valuable source of income.
So it's not just about managing costs.
Nope.
It's about finding new ways to grow your business.
Exactly. Developing an app is a big decision, but the potential benefits,
They're definitely there.
for sure.
This has been, wow, super insightful.
It hasn't it?
We talked about all the stages of app development,
Uh-huh.
the things that impact costs, those awesome cost-saving strategies you mentioned.
My favorites.
And then, why investing in an app can be so beneficial.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did.
Yeah.
I think we gave our listeners a lot to think about.
A good foundation for understanding the Australian app development landscape.
Totally. Now, before we wrap up this segment,
Yeah.
let's leave our listeners with a question, something to ponder.
Okay. I like it.
So, how can you actually leverage the unique characteristics of the Australian market
Ooh, good one.
to create an app that really resonates with local users?
That's a great question to think about. What are those cultural nuances, those lifestyle preferences, even the regulatory stuff that shapes the app market here,
Right.
but really understanding those unique aspects?
You can create something special.
Yes, something that stands out
Yeah.
and really connects with your target audience.
Okay, welcome back. Part 3 of our deep dive into Aussie app development costs. We've talked about a lot of the, general stuff.
Yeah, big picture.
But now I want to really get into, what makes Australia different?
Ah, yes. The land down under.
Right, because building an app in Sydney has got to be different from, I don't know, Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah. Definitely has its own unique challenges and opportunities.
So let's talk about that. I mean, we mentioned location before, right?
Yeah,
Hiring Aussie developers could be more expensive than outsourcing overseas.
true.
But the article really emphasizes the advantages of keeping it local.
Especially in a market like Australia.
So what are those advantages?
Okay.
Just cost.
Well, communication is huge. Being in the same time zone,
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
things so much easier.
Right. Back and forth is so much faster. Plus, Aussie developers, they just get it, They understand Australian consumers, their habits, their slang.
Oh right, the little cultural things.
Exactly. Even just Aussie humor.
That's important for an app.
It makes the app feel authentic.
Okay. And then there's the whole legal side of things, right?
Ah, yes. the rules and regulations.
Because Australia, they're known for having, like, strong consumer protection laws. And data privacy, right?
Very much. The Privacy Act of 1988. It's a big one here.
Okay, and that affects app development how?
Well, it dictates how apps can collect data, you know, how they can use it, store it, disclose it.
So it's all about protecting people's personal information.
Exactly. So developers have to be really careful about getting consent from users, having clear privacy policies, and making sure that data is secure.
So it's about building trust, right?
Absolutely. Showing users you're taking their privacy seriously.
Okay, are there like specific parts of the Privacy Act that are super important for app developers?
Well, the use and disclosure principles, they basically say you can only use the data for the reason you collected it for.
So, no funny business.
Right. And you can't share it without consent, unless there's a specific legal reason.
Okay, so this impacts things like marketing, right?
Yeah, how apps can use data for marketing, or if they want to share it with other companies.
So you got to be transparent about how you're using the data.
Exactly. Give users control.
Makes sense. What about other regulations? Anything specific to the app market?
Well, the Australian consumer law applies to apps as well.
Oh, right. Forgot about that.
So that covers things like misleading advertising, unfair contract terms, and consumer guarantees.
So no sneaky stuff.
Exactly. Be upfront about what your app does, how much it costs, and what those in-app purchases really entail.
Okay, so it's all about like fairness
Yeah.
and transparency.
Right, making sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Okay, so we talked about the legal side, but how does just like Australian culture itself, how does that influence app design?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, Australians, they're generally pretty tech-savvy.
Yeah, they seem to love gadgets.
Right. And they embrace new tech quickly. They're also really mobile first.
What does that mean?
They use their smartphones for everything. Banking, shopping, socializing, you name it.
So apps have got to be like super user-friendly.
Exactly. Easy to use, optimized for mobile.
And what about those like Aussie cultural quirks we were talking about? How do they play into design?
Well, Australians are known for their, laid-back attitude.
Oh, yeah.
And their sense of humor, that dry, sarcastic wit.
So you're saying inject some personality.
Yeah. Maybe a little Aussie slang here and there.
Make it sound authentic.
Exactly. Think about those iconic Australian brands. They often have that, cheeky tone.
Right, it's part of the brand.
Reflects the national character.
I love that. Okay, so looking ahead now.
Their crystal ball.
What are some of the emerging trends, technologies that are going to shape the future of app development in Australia? What are people excited about?
Well, artificial intelligence is huge. AI, everyone's talking about it.
I know. It seems like it's everywhere.
Right. But in app development, it can personalize user experiences, power chatbots, even predict user behavior.
So apps are becoming more intuitive?
Yeah, more responsive to individual needs.
Like they're learning about us.
Exactly. Okay, and then there's augmented reality, AR.
Oh, that's cool. Is that a big thing in Australia?
It's gaining traction, for sure. We're seeing it in gaming, retail, even education.
What does that look like?
Imagine trying on clothes virtually or seeing how a piece of furniture would look in your living room.
Oh, right. Before you buy it.
Exactly. Or you could take a virtual tour of a historical site.
Through your phone?
Through your phone. It's amazing.
Wow, it sounds like the future of Aussie app development is going to be pretty wild.
It's going to be amazing, full of innovation. So exciting.
Any last words of wisdom for, aspiring app developers out there?
Do your research. Know your market. And don't be afraid to be creative. Think outside the box. Australia's tech scene is booming. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it really is. And a huge thanks to Now Technology Systems for their awesome article.
Oh, yeah. Definitely helped us out.
It gave us so much to talk about. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a fun one.
It has.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning. There's always more to discover.
Absolutely.